week we will have a 2 day session, today and tomorrow. So I will try to compensate those hours. And today we have a topic to talk about that is uh, since last week we were talking about the data model, and this week we will start with the process model, which is the next chapter. So in the process model, uh, first of all, we have to understand what is process model. So in the data model, we have seen that based on a different domain like material, customer, vendor, finance, custom object, based on a different domain, we basically create one data warehouse where we have attribute, entity types, relations, and then we have a respective SMT mapping. We have respective configuration for Genie, particularly for BP, and similarly for BP, we also have the customer vendor integration, which is CVI, and so on. So basically, all sort of data warehousing part we maintain. Now coming to the process model. So basically, process model offers to define different processes in the MDG framework. So what kind of processes we have? Like create, change, mark for deletion, block unblock, mass update, etc. So majorly, if I talk about any real-time project, so these are all major processes which we have. So create, so it can be create material master, it can be create customer master, it can be create supplier master, or it can be create custom master data. Similarly, for change or update or extension, whatever the name you say, basically you have some data already uh, in the process, so you are trying to update them, and then mark for deletion. And mark for deletion does not mean that you are completely deleting the data from the system. No, it is like the data will be there in the system, just you are going to mark them as a deletion flag. Okay, so what is going to happen? So the moment you mark it as a deletion flag, you are not going to use that particular data anymore in the organization, because that data is uh, clearly then underlined as a not used in a real time process. Similarly, some sort of block and unblock is a similar concept. Can you please mute yourself? I can see some little noise. Yeah, thanks. So block unblock. So block unblock is more or less same story like a deletion. Here you just block. So there are three types of blocking. We have a deletion flag. We have a, central posting and central purchase. Okay, so three types of blocking we will have. Anyhow, we will see that. And then we have mass update. So mass update means you have more than one vendor. So it's not possible that every single vendor you go and you mark them. It's not possible. So you have to select them in one go, and then you have to either change certain field value. Let's say you want to change their business base unit of measure, or you want to change their material type, or you want to change payment terms, or you want to change their let's say the business partner or information, or let's say you want to mark them as a deletion flag, or central posting flag, or central purchase flag. You want to mark them altogether, whatever the vendor you have, like 10, 15, 20, whatever the number you have, more than one vendor at least. So then you can make it through the mass update. Okay, so that's the main purpose to have the process model. So now the question is on, in order to do this activity, create, change, deletion, block and block, mass update, what exactly the procedure we follow, or what kind of configuration we need to do. So basically, One uh, underlying point here is, and which I already mentioned since almost day one, that in MDG we are going to deal everything with the change request, MDG change request. The reason is to make the whole process transparent. So in SAP GUI we have a different transactions like for material create or vendor create or customer create. Similarly, material change, vendor change, customer change. We have different transactions, but we are not going to use those transactions here in MDG. If it is a normal ECC process, then okay. But in MDG we are not going to use that. The reason is very simple that whatever the changes or create or whatever the activity we are going to do, that has to be transparent, that has to going through a proper approval procedure, and then it will activate and it will update the data accordingly in the framework. So because of that reason, we need to follow the MDG change request. Now in the next slide, we have to understand that these three major items, that is business activity, change request type, and change request. So first of all, what is called business activity? Okay. So in order to understand this, uh, I'll give a very simple example. Wait a minute. Let me open our. I just unshare my screen. I need to open our Excel discussion Excel. Okay. Let me share. Okay. So let's say uh, business activity and then change change request type, change request type, and next is change request. Okay, these three things. Now, in order to make you understand, it is not the same concept. Just I'm giving you example. It does not mean this is really mean that. Okay? So, just one quick example in order to understand what is business activity or how this business activity works. Similarly, what is change request type and how the change request work. So, the simple example which I will give, that is like what we maintain in normal data dictionary table in SAP, that is domain, then data element, data element, and then we have let's say field or attribute. Okay, so field and attribute is something which is a kind of a outer layer which we can see whether in SAP GUI transaction or whether it is SAP web UI or SAP related HTTP page, HTML page. So whatever it is, we can see this attribute. This is the outer data. Behind this data, we have something called data element, which basically holding the details about the field. Okay, and then the behind the data element we have domain. So domain is nothing but the soul of this field, which contained whether this field is a character or string or number or anything else. Okay, and also domain contain whether it has any domain related value table, okay, or domain related any descriptions restrict to the field. So those details we can maintain. So business activity exactly uh, work in that way. So business activity is a soul which is having the basic information about the change request. Change request type is just uh, the outer layer of business activity, or rather I can see that we have a different processes like create, change, mark for deletion, block unblock, mask. So for different processes we have a different change request type. Not only that, for different regions, let's say we have a region like EMEA, APAC, Laos, and North America. So based on a different region, we can also have the different change request type. So change request type is something which we can make it irrespective of different processes, irrespective of different geographical location, irrespective of different business, the deviation divisions they have. So we can make it accordingly. So like we have a different units in the business, and every unit will have a different change request type. So that is also possible to define. And then we have the change request. So for create, the change requests look like the set of fields will be different. For mark for deletion, it will be different. For block and block, it will be different. For mass, it will be different. So different processes, different scheme we will have. And similarly for different region, let's say for North America region, you might not require certain fields, which you might be required for now. And again, for Asia Pacific, we need something else. So this way, based on the different geographical location, we can make it. Okay. So this is the difference between the business activity, change request type, and change request. So similarly, change request is something which we can see. It's a web UI, the most outer layer. And then behind this, we have change request type, and behind this, we have business activity. Okay. So now go back to the screen, and we will create. So today, I will go with this for HANA. Okay. Fine. So we are right now in this for HANA instance. And now go to MDG IMG and there. So first, what I'm going to do, the first thing which I'm going to do, that is, I will start with the custom one. So you remember that we, in the data model, we talked about the airline processing. We started with the custom data model where we have a like a carrier ID, currency, and URL, etc. So I will go to that data model first, and I will prepare the respective process model for that. Okay. So here we go. So this is the MDG airline process, and I will MDG type. So we have carrier ID, which is of course uh, type one, and we have inside this URL, and then we have currency, which is type 3, and it does not have any attribute. It's a It's an entity type also as an attribute, and then we have relationship. Okay, so this is the model which we have. Now, respect to this model, we will create the process. Okay, the process model for this. So come out from there and then go to the process model and go to under the process model. The first thing which you can see that is the define the governance scope. So if you see here what kind of governance scope we have, so it is talking about like different type of models which we have and their respective entity types and attributes. What we have maintained in data model. So the same story it basically repeat. But anyway, the data model part we have already maintained. So straight away we will go to the business activity. And then the first thing is define the logical actions. So what are those logical actions we have? So we have logical actions like the processes which we talked about, like create, change, mark for deletion, and then block, unblock, and then mass processing and multi-record processing. Okay, both are more or less same, slightly differences are there, but ultimately they are dealing with the multiple records at the same time. Okay, then you also have something called hierarchies and all. But normally, if I talk about the process point of view, normal project point of view, normally they use these are all create, change, block, delete, and mask. Okay. So now these are all actions are already present. So I need not to define any further action. Okay. And in fact, we never defined any action from our side because the number of actions we have that is more than sufficient for any kind of project because these are all major processes we perform ultimately. Then coming to the create business activity. So in the create business activity, so let's say for airline process, how I will go with. So let's say, let me give first the data model name, okay, and the business activity. So business activity, let's say B. Just give me 1 minute. So this is something airline, yeah, this is okay. Airline process business activity. And then the data model, this one. Okay. Then now the biotype. Biotype is, first of all, we have to understand what is called business object. Now, how many business objects we have, by the way, for any kind of master data? So we have plenty number of business objects, but the most important business objects are uh, normally the customer data and then the business partner relations. Then you have product. Product is nothing but material. Okay. Till 8.0, I think it's called material. Then thereafter it's product. Okay. So in 9.0 and particularly when it is with S4 HANA MDG system, we call it as a product. So ultimately it's a material. And then we also have something called profit center, supplier, etc. So these are all different BO type. Now we have to understand what is this BO type all about. So every BO type will have uh, the attributes, the data elements, the different events, different methods, and those events, methods, data elements help to perform certain activity. What kind of activity? Activity like create, change, mark for deletion, block and block, approval, rejection, rollback, and then activation, validation, etc. So these are all different processes it has within the BO type. So BO type is very important. If I don't have BO type, then for a particular domain, I cannot make to validate the data, or for a particular domain, I cannot activate the data, roll back the data, approve the data, etc. So that's what the BO type is very, very important. Now the BO type, whatever we see, this is for the a kind of a standard item. Whatever the standard master data we have, for those mostly it has. Okay. Then the question is, what about the BO type for the custom objects? What we will have there? So now here one important point. Please underline this point that whenever you deal with some custom uh, data model, okay. So for that particular custom data model, when you are creating respective process model, then it will be required to have the BO type. In that case, you need not to define any BO type. If you want, yes, you say that, okay, I want to create one BO type and I will create my own methods, own events, own attributes, then it's fine. You can do that. But it is not necessary. Then the question is, why it is not necessary? Because the BO type is important. And why it is not necessary? The reason is, if I go to the transaction SWO1, okay, SWO1 is a transaction for uh, access the business object. So let it open. So business object, and here we define the business object like bus 2250. Remember, this bus 2250 is a standard business object which already associate with MDG framework. So whether you define or you don't define doesn't matter. The bus 2250 will be responsible for all, particularly for custom data model. Okay, so that's what. If you are dealing with a custom data model, it is not necessary to define the business object because the backend bus 2250 will take care of that activity. Okay, now if I just display what I see, I can see the interface. So just expand it. So this is the interface. Then this is the key fields, change request, and index of parallel steps. Then we have attributes. So we have a different types of attributes. Okay. Then we have methods. So what kind of methods we have? Let's see. See, validate, replicate, activate, rollback, process, update, display, read, existence check. These are all different methods. Okay. And events, we have something called create, change, mark for deletion, activation, rollback, and then sub workflow processes, etc. So that's what the business object bus 2250 will be available and will be helping the custom one. Okay. So this is not necessary. So I'm just keep it black. Okay. So the logical action. So let's say start with create. Then similarly, we will go for change. Okay. So let me, okay, this is uh, save it and save it under the process model TR. Okay. Now again, get into it and then search for it. So it will start with Z6. This one. Okay. So this is the business activity we have. And as I said, that the business activity, so there are two things which is very important to understand. That business activity is associated with the data model. That is one thing. And the second thing is that business activity is associated with the appropriate actions, whether it is a create or change or mark for deletion. That's what when I'm saying that we have a soul within it. So why? Because it is having the clear picture whether this change request type is for create or for change or for mark for deletion or for mass update. Okay, so that's the reason. So this is the business activity. Now behind this business activity, you can see the four different options. These four options are part of the activate type linkage. But this activate type linkage, we need to keep it parked until the UI application gets completed. Okay, because this activity is uh, dependent on the UI part. So until we complete the UI, we cannot come and discuss this activity. Otherwise, you will not able to understand. Now in MDG, this is one very interesting thing. One process is, dependent with the other process. Like where you see here in process model just now, that the business activity for airline process is associated with the data model, right? With the data model. So if the data model is not there, it is not possible to define the process model. So they are interdependent with each other. Okay. So this four things we need to park for the time being. Once we cover the UI chapter, then we will come back again and discuss what kind of configurations we need to do here. Then I'm straight away going to the change request because after the business activity, immediately we have to create the change request type. Okay. So change request type, if I go here, so as I was telling, like based on a different process, based on a different geographical location, we can create the change request type. So now, because it is my custom case, so what I need to do, let's go with the same name, BA1, or you can take anything, whatever you want, or let's say uh, create. Okay, edition type, whether it is a edition dependent or edition independent. So what is going to happen if it is edition dependent? If it is edition dependent, so tomorrow if you are going to migrate from this the existing version to the next version, then this change request mm, uh, you cannot borrow them. Okay, so that's the problem. So it will be always in independent the edition type, but rather I will say just skip it. You need not to define anything. Then go to the data model. So I'm just providing the data model details here. So the description is, so airline process change request. Okay, this is the, or you can take any different description. Now, here, there are three, four items which we need to understand very clearly. One is the object required, single object and parallel. First of all, what is this object required? Object required means this change request type which you created for what? Created for the data model Z6. Whether this is the uh, mandatory change request type for Z6. If I in case make it tick, do you know what is the meaning of this? The meaning is every time you do for any sort of activity like create, because it is associated with the action create, then you have to go to this change request type Z6 create. You cannot create a different change request type and you cannot create a different change request for create scenario as far as Z6 data model is concerned. Then there are two questions which comes in mind. One is why I need another request type. Just now, a few minutes back, I said, let's say this is for EMEA region, but tomorrow you have one more region which will add in your bag. So that is, let's say, the Lao or North America. Then you will be needed to extend your change request type accordingly. So then what you need to do? You need to create one more change request type for the same data model. But if you make it object required, then it will be always like a permanent change request type or a mandatory change request type for the Z6 data model. So we will never use this object required for change request type. Change request type can be multiple. Please remember this thing. Change request type can be multiple based on the geographic location, based on like you have a very certain type of a business where you need a different change request type. Doesn't bother with the geographical location of the process, but you have a certain, some X factor you have. So then you'll create a different change request type. So that's what we will never go with object required for change request type. Now coming to the single object. What is the meaning of single object? Single object means that in the previous chapter, or rather in the first chapter, we talked about the different processes. Like we have a processes like where requester, verifier, approver, they perform the activity one by one, which we call it as a single workflow. And another workflow which we have that is parallel workflow. So parallel workflow means when we have a parallelly the multiple process happening. So similarly, same sort of a thing. Now it is asking the change request which you are creating for a certain action, whether this is for the single process or the parallel process. That you need to define. So single process means like it will go with one change request at a time or multiple change request at a time. Okay, so that is the idea to have the single object. So if it is a multiple change request, then it is a parallel processing. So normally we will go with the single object because we will be handled with single change request. Then the main entity type is nothing but the leading entity type. So leading entity type is the carrier ID here, no doubt about it. Then workflow template. Now remember, change request type is always also associated with the workflow template. So here the workflow template is this way it is not going to help me. Uh, WS star. Yeah. I'm using just one of the existing one. Okay. This is the workflow template. Now let me show you what is this workflow template, why this workflow template is necessary. If we don't use this workflow template, then what is going to happen? Then this workflow template, I'm just accessing through the transaction SWDD, which is for SAP workflow transaction. Now here, the workflow section, you enter the number. And when you enter this number, see, so this is something which is important. So you can see this is the backend workflow process, and it is a very complicated process. It is a multiple checkpoints, okay, uh, for approval, for rejection, for whatever it is. And this workflow template, that is fine that you are going to create through the MDG process, create, change, mark for deletion, etc. But ultimately, when you are doing the things through change request, you have to go through the workflow process, okay, for further approval. So the idea of having this workflow template at the back end is, on top of this workflow template, we can create our own processes, like create, change, mark for deletion. So that particular workflow template, uh, the backend details we will be using as a standard stuff. But obviously, we will have our own custom workflow. It does not mean that we are going to use the standard workflow. No, not at all. Our workflow steps number will be completely different. Only this is something which is the backend uh, workflow template, which will help in order to stabilize this approval procedures. Then target system default, so just leave it as it is, not necessary. Okay. Now it says that the change request type Z6 create the main entity type carrier ID does not exist. But here just few minutes back I have given. Then what happened? Then I need to also Z6, sorry, carrier ID. Uh, Here the main carrier ID, sorry, main entity type, which is nothing but the carrier ID, and the UI configuration ID. UI configuration ID at this moment we don't know, because UI is the next chapter. When we will go to the UI chapter, then we will maintain that. Okay, so I just keep it blank at this moment. But the entity type is carrier ID. So that means here also we need to maintain the entity type. And then rest of the details are like standard information. And just save it. Okay. So here no processor assigned. This is warning. Just ignore it. Whatever we have maintained, that is fine. Okay. So everything will be stored in a certain TR, whether it is a workbench or customizing. And then go to the business activity. Now in the business activity, we already created the business activity for this. So just we need to call this. So go to F4. and this one, first one. Okay. So this is how we maintain this. So we basically deal with the change request type. Then we also maintain the entity type here and the business activity. Now you can also raise one question, what about the service level agreement? How do you manage this? So basically, though this option is here, but nowadays nobody is using the service level agreement from here. Rather, we deal the service level agreement through programmatically. Okay, so that will be one of my case study. So I'm not going to talk about here because it is not relevant here to talk about the service level agreement will be purely managed programmatically. But I can give you a view what it is having inside. So if I go to the service level agreement, so now here you can see we have the things like based on priority. So like this is a change request. If it has a priority 2 or priority 1, then we have to resolve it as per the obviously contract. But let's say if it is 1, then we have to resolve it in next 2 hours. If it is 2, then we have to resolve in next 8 hours. And if it is 3 or 4, then it will have like a 4 days or 5 days time. So likewise, based on a different priority, we will have a different hours or days mentioned. So earlier, what was happening? Earlier, the thing was drive from here, but then some challenges came in front of us. What kind of challenges? Like for an example, you receive a ticket Friday night exactly 6:30, 7 o'clock p.m. and your logout time is let's say 8 o'clock, 8 p.m. Then you don't have 2 hours time technically. So you are supposed to work on this ticket on Monday, but when you come Monday, you can see that you are already violated the SLA, but you are not because Saturday and Sunday is off for you. So in that case, if you maintain just priority here and mention the days and hours, your SLA will get violated. So you have to manage this programmatically. You have to follow the calendar. You have to accordingly minus those weekends and then calculate accordingly. And also you have to calculate what time the change request receive and what time you deliver from your end. Okay. So these are all calculations are needed. So anyhow, that is a part of a case study. So we will be discuss that. So this is the way we define the change request. So let me say, so here Z6, this is the one, Z6 create. Okay. Now, this workflow template, here I just mentioned, okay, this is the workflow template. But for an example, when you have a create, change, mark for deletion, block, unblock, etc., etc., how you are going to know that which workflow template I have to use or whether this is the workflow template you have to use everywhere? No. This workflow template you have to use, you can use, I mean to say that, not have to, you can use if you have the custom data model. This is one workflow template which you can use. Okay. But particularly for material, for customer, for supplier, how you are going to do that? So let me unshare my screen for a while and open the configuration documents, which I already shared with you, the basic configuration document for customer, vendor and all. Mm, Material, supplier, customer, finance. Okay. So now let me share my screen. So here we go. Mm, So this is for what? 1 minute. This document is for master data governance for business partners. So okay. So the page number is what is the page number? Page number is 19. Page number 19 for business partner document. You can see this is the change request type. And this is the by the way standard. These are all. This is the data model. This is the description. Main entity type, of course, BP header is nothing but the leading entity type and the workflow template. So that means the primary question which we had that how I'm going to get this workflow template. So the easy solution is that the workflow template will be given by SAP and already it is a part of the configuration document. So you can check that. Okay. So now if I similarly go with the another one which is for material. Page number 27. Okay. And sorry, page number 26. And this is the 26, 25. So mat 01, change request time. Mat 02, 01 is for create, change, mark for deletion. Now go back to the screen. Now here, similarly, uh, if I quickly see those details, so mat 01, here we go. So we have mat 01, 02, 06. 01 is for create, 02 is for change, 06 is for mark for deletion. For material, there is nothing called block unblock. For material, this is just a mark for deletion. Then material 0A. 0A is multiprocessing. Mat 0A1 is something probably someone has created, but not necessary. Then mat 0B. 0B is nothing but the import master data. Okay. So these are all different change request type for material. Same way, if I talk about, let's say, supplier data, I think SUP stars. create supplier, change supplier, sorry, change supplier. Process supplier is change supplier. Then SUP PL5 P1 is block and block. Then this is marked for deletion. This is marked for deletion. Okay. And then we have multi-processing for finance and purchase. Finance means uh, mm, company code and purchase means purchaser. Okay. So this is the change request type for supplier. Similarly, you have the change request type for customer. So let me show you for customer as well. It is something like CUS. Uh, Wait a minute. Yes, customer. This is supplier. Okay, supplier is done. Customers. The only problem with this document is a lack of sequencing. Otherwise, all relevant records are there. So that's not a problem. The only problem is a lack of sequencing. Anyway, so here, CUST1P1. CUST1P1. Okay. So this is for, oh sorry, CUST1P1. Okay, that is, I guess for customer, it is not maintained here. This is for create company. These are all finance data, ML. It is not there. So then you can follow this document accordingly. So this is the change request type, BP data model, then description, then single object. As I was telling, always we will deal with one change request at a time. Whether I may have a single vendor or single customer or single material or multiple vendor, multiple customer or multiple material, doesn't matter. My change request will be always one. So this is the reason we always go with the single object. If you choose the parallel one, that means you are going with a multiple change request at the same time. Then main entity type, which is BP header here, and the template. Okay, and also here you can see this is the same template which we use for custom one. That's what I was telling you that you can also use. You can use that as well for custom one. Okay. So everything has been already provided in the configuration document. So it is quite easy to get it done. But the question is whether I need to go with the standard change request type, whether this is the case. Actually, no. You are not supposed to use the standard change request type. Okay. But again, it depends on customer to customer, organization to organization. But if you ask me based on my prior experience, we will never be used the standard change request type because our process is custom, our customer is unique, our processes are unique. So why then the change request will be standard? Why don't the change request also, why can't it be unique? So that's the reason we will also create the custom change request type. Now let's say how I will do that. Let's say start with material. Okay. So here match 01 now. So this is for the material create. Okay, material create scenario. Now let's say in my project also it has a material create scenario. For everybody project material means material create scenario will be there. So in that case, how I will do that? The custom one. Just copy the standard one and just change like Z, your your client name, your client name, followed by the mat01 or mat1, whatever you can say. Okay. And then just enter, and rest of the details will remain same. Okay. So that means we can straight away copy the standard change request type and create the custom one. That is the easy way to do that. Otherwise, you can obviously create. So again, let's say for change, say apply map to data model ML. Here, material change or update single object. Now main entity. So main entity for material is nothing but the material. Then workflow template. Normally workflow template, this is the one which we will be using. Okay. Then you can also check this number. So this is the document and this is the number. You can cross check. And then just save it. Okay. Go to the entity type. Create the entry. Material. UI configuration ID, I don't know at this moment, so I will just skip it. Okay. Then go to business activity. Now here, whether I need to create the business activity also custom, not necessary. This is here just like a domain. So domain record you are not going to see at the front end, right? So it is your backend data. So in backend, I can directly call. Sorry, this is for change. Sorry, not two. Okay, process material. So this is how we create the whole change request type process. Okay, and then based on this change request type process, we call the change request. How? That is also I can just show you. Uh, let's go to NWBC. Okay, then create material, change material, mark for deletion, mass change. Okay, so these are all different processes. I cannot calculate, or I cannot say that file upload and download is also a part of process. No, they are the part of uh, input data activity, okay, or export data activity, but they are not the processes. So these are two different things. Okay, so the change request type. So let's try with first one, standard one. So let's go with max 0, 01. Always try to open with uh, Chrome because Internet Explorer usually takes some time. Okay, syntax error program. Let's see. This is something which is not related to our case, but rather the UI generation issue, which basis needs to look into. Okay, so today is 29th, right? 29th. Yes. And the user admin, syntax errors. Let's go there. Error analysis. Okay. Why it failed? Because the specified data object does not have the component called ztest12. Definitely, there is a data attribute called ztest12, and that ztest12 did not maintain properly in the SMT mapping. That's what it has been failed. Okay. So if we correct that, then it will be okay. Okay. So this is how we deal with the change request, business activity, and change request type. So far, any question anybody has? So basically, we talked about these three things so far: business activity, change request type, and change request.
It's clear from my side.
Hi Aditya,
Okay.
can you
Yes.
explain again single object and pilot object again?
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. So one change request type. So here is the supplier data. For an example, I'm just taking supplier. Okay. So one supplier data when you are going to, whether it is a create or a change, whatever you are doing, okay, whether you are going to use one change request or more than one change request. Okay. So let's say for an example, even though mass processing or multi-processing. In multi-processing, I may have multiple vendors, but those vendors are part of the single change request, right? So that is the reason we say that it is a single object. So always we will go with the single object because one change request we will process at a time. The change request can contain one record or more than one record. That is a different story. But it will be a one change request. But the moment you maintain the parallel one, that means you are going to deal with the multiple change requests. So respect to this change request I, one at a time, more than one change request is going to generate for multiple vendors. That is the meaning of the single object and the parallel. Okay.
Okay, got it. So generally we go for the single object only in all the projects.
Yes, single object only. Single object only we will always go. We hardly go with parallel. At least I haven't go so far. Whatever the project we come across, that is single object, and that is more than sufficient. Whether you go with mass processing multi-processing or single, everything it's single. Ultimately, one change request at a time. Any end users are using.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Hey Aditya, in a parallel request, if you have parallel request, can you go for one request alone, or you have to have more than one request?
More than one change request you will have. You will have
Okay.
more than one change request for
Hmm.
multiple vendors. Yeah.
Okay. So even though you configure it for parallel, can you still send a single
Mhm.
request, or you need to have more than one?
No, no, no. More than one request will trigger.
Okay.
More than one
Okay.
request will trigger, which we don't need. That's what we always go with the single change request, because single change request is easy to from if I talk about the governance point of view, single change
Hmm.
request is easy to maintain or easy to
Okay.
locate. Like if I have always I give the example of the marks, because one
Hmm.
vendor is okay, I can manage it, but when I have 100 vendors or 200 vendors in mass
Hmm.
at a time, 250 vendors you can
Hmm.
accommodate under the one change request. So if I have, let's say, 250 or less than 250 vendors, that is also
Hmm.
a good number. Okay.
Okay.
So if I have multiple change requests for that, then it will be
Hmm.
difficult for me to track. So that's what we always go with the single object.
Okay. Okay.
Hi Aditya,
So
can you hear me?
yes. Yeah, yeah, tell
So
me.
my so my question is related during creation of change request. So never ask any transport request. So we are directly created in the production. Suppose we are following three landscape: shape, quality, and production for MDG. So how to we create a dev and move to and then production, or directly we need to create?
No, 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 no. We will follow this R3 procedures, whatever we have. Like whatever, let's say we recently create the business activity and change request, right? So here I have this one, this TR, which is having the detail about the business activity or change request or whatever I did under the process. Okay. And is there any other tier? Yes, I have one more. So basically, we have two things. One is the workbench, and another one is customizing, which I already talked about previously. So basically, workbench means when you have a standard and you are just extending the standard one, that is something workbench. And when you are creating completely a new detail, that is something customized. So now I have a two TR, which is at the development stage. So this is the development environment, let's say. So what I need to do for once everything is ready, my test is done, then this TR I need to release and need to send it to the quality. Then this processes whatever I have created here, that will go and land in quality. Then in quality again you can do have a UAT, and then finally the TR will move to uh, uh, the production. And the sequence, if I talk about the sequence, uh, mm, the TR has been created in the system, in development system, the same sequence it will go. Okay. So the sequence, you cannot break the sequence. The sequence will be the same. Okay? So definitely the it will follow the all three environment, the TR movement as we have in normal PCCS.
But suppose that there are two consultants working on same custom change request. So it's possible, or only one MDG consultant work for one change request.
First of all, that is a bad practice. That two consultant work in a one change, one transport. request. Why? It should not be. Every individual who is working on certain thing, the particular person will have their own fresh TR. Okay. Yes, that can be a possibility. Let's say I'm working on certain TR. I'm going for a leave, so I will transfer my TR to you. So during my absence, you will start working on it. That is a different concept. Okay, but that time I will release from my end, so it will go to your card basically. But multiple people are working on a same TR. That means what happened? That let's say I have a certain things which I am working. You are a certain things which you are working, but we have a same tier. So though I have completed my job, but I have to wait for you until your job is complete. Otherwise, I cannot release the tiers. Okay, so that's
Yeah.
the problem here. So you
Thank you.
cannot do that. Yeah. Okay. So this is just what we have discussed. Just I added the screenshot for reference. Let's say this is the business activity. So business activities for a supplier. This is how it look like. Okay. Then the change request type. Here also you can see most of the requests which maintain that is single object and change request will look like this, where you have the basic change request information, where change request ID. Okay, change request ID is a unique ID and that is also having some number range. The number range for the change request is SNRO and USMD underscore C request. Okay, so this is the for this particular instance, this is the present change request number. Okay, so this number is always unique. So here and then you have a, now I am coming to that. So the next topic is in the change request section. It is not about the change request number. You have so many other details, like particularly the reasons, status. These are all details, and then followed by the basic data of whether it is a supplier or whether it is a business partner or whether it is a material, etc. Hello, am I audible?
Yes.
Hello. Okay. So what I was telling that the change request, it is not just about the ID. We also having the priority, reasons, status. These are all different field, which is a very important field. It is having a very important significance as far as MDG framework is concerned. And then it is having the following data like a material basic data, business partner or vendor or customer basic data, etc. So now let me go to this table. So this is one very important chart. This chart is talking about a lot of things. What is that? First is the change request. So ultimately, whatever the change request you are creating or changing or mark for deletion, whatever you are doing, ultimately that is going to store in a certain table, right? So this whole uh, pictorial data, whatever you see, this is information about change request backend table. why these backend tables are important, why it is necessary for us to understand this. Just not that I create some change request and I just need to go to that particular table and just need to see whether that change request is there or whether that information is there. No, it's not just for like that. Also, those tables we need to call during the data validations, rather during the data services. Like we have a different type of data services, like email notification, rule context preparation. We have something called dynamic agent, etc. So those data validations and derivations or data services activity, though these tables will have a very important role to play. Okay. So for an example, if I tell you that email notification. So email concept says when I when I create one change request and then approval done, activation done, and then when it is complete, then the person who requests this change request, the requester will receive the mail. That is the simple concept of email notification. So in that case, while we will write the code in ABAP level, the first thing which we will see whether that particular change request is logically exist in the table or not. So in that case, we will go and check in USMD 120C table, which is change request table. Okay, so let's go and see parallelly. So here I go to USMD 120C. So this is the change request table. In change request table, we have change request number, type of change request edition, change request status, change request description, uh, created at what time. It is always in a timestamp manner. That is year, month, date, hour, minute, second. Okay, so it is in a timestamp manner. And then created by whom, then changed what time, changed by whom, released what time, and released by whom, and then priority, whether the change request is activated or not. That means the activation completed or not, and reason of the change request. So these are all very important information which resides under the USMD 120C table. So today, if I go there and if I see, I can see there are around 100 records we have. And if I go there, so here you can see, okay. So this is the change request number, change request type, description, the status of the change request, and then what time it has been created. Okay, that means 2020 06 uh, 12. This is year. This is month. Month is 06. 12 is date. This is hour, minute, second. Okay. So this is in a timestamp manner. Then created by whom, then released, then completed. Okay. Completed is flag check. That means the process is completed. So this is how we get the information about the change request from this table. That is one thing. Now, similarly, what is the next item? Next item is the status. Again, I take the same example, email notification. So, email, when the email will go to the requester, if the process is completed, if the process or if the change request is activated and the process is completed, then what I need to do, I need to see the status of the change request. Because otherwise, how I will come to know the change request is complete or not complete? For me, status is the only trigger point or checkpoint where I can see what is the present condition of the change request. So for that, we have to go to the USMD 130C. USMD 130C. Okay, so it is having change request status, change request status here. Okay, so these are all different status. So now let me show you where we enter the status in the change request. So here is the edit status. So these are all standard status which we'll be using down the line in the workflow process. When we will create the workflow, there we will be using the status. And these are all different description. And then we have a different type of permitting processing. Like no processing means, let's say for an example, if my change request is standing in 04 status, that means it is not allowed to change or edit any information, no processing. Secondly is change of object list. That means a certain amount of information can be allowed to change, and execution of changes means every single record can be allowed. Okay, so that's the different type of permitting uh, processing we have for the different status. Now the question is, can we create our own status? Of course, we can create our own status. So let's say I will create Y7 test, no processing. Let's say. Okay. Now this data, where it will go? It will go to USMD 130 table. Let's refresh, or rather just go back. Status Y7. Okay. So whatever we are adding there in MDG, IMG, this is the backend CR tables. Okay. Then go back. Then what is that? The text table is nothing but the descriptions. It holds the description. Another important table is priority. So as I was telling, SLA. So that is also we manage normally through the ABAP code. So when we write the logic, one of the main important logic is like what is the priority? We first need to understand the priority, and based on the priority, what is the contract we have with customer? Whether priority one is for 2 hours or priority two is for 8 hours. So that contract also we need to understand at the same time. So the priority means, so the 210 table. So let me first go there. Mm, here, priority. So let's say mm, priority seven. Seven. What was the priority earlier? 1 minute. Uh, Seven. Okay. No, priority does not define like this way. 1 minute. Always the priority is, let's say, priority 1. 1 means high resolution, let's say 2 hours. Okay, but this is just a description. It is not going to help you in the logic, but when you write the logic, this will help you to, okay, priority 1 means 2 hours. Then this is very high. This is high resolution, 8 hours. Like, okay. So now I can see this detail.
Uh, Hello? Okay.
Yeah, I'm here, but I can't do anything on the screen. Screen is freeze, it seems. Wait a minute, let me share my screen and then close this remote desktop connection and try to access it again. Okay, let me share now. Okay, let's see, 16. So USND 210C. Okay, so just execute and you can see. So this is the first two entry which we have maintained. Okay, so this is the backend table for priority. Then similarly for SLA, you can define SLA also, and then CR type. CR type is USMD 110C. C. Okay. And recently today we create one CR type related to Z6. Two entries are there. Let's see. So execute. This is the two entry where we create today this one. Right. So here it is a change request type details. So these are all change request backend tables which will be very much necessary not only just to check the data, also down the line, in order to read the data, particularly when we will be reading the change request for data validations and derivations. That time, this is very useful tables. Now go back to the screen. So what are those things we have covered under the change request type? We talked about status, we talked about change request type, we talked about priorities, yes, reasons. Reasons are similarly, uh, honestly speaking, I don't like to keep the reasons. Reasons is one of the field which you can see in this screenshot. So here is the reason is one of the field on change request, and uh, it is an important field by standard, but I don't like to keep this field. The reason is it does not make any sense. Okay, that's the reason. Because if you see that the change request type, just we need to give some reason. In short, like just brief about the change request. So this is like, for an example, the YMAT01. This is nothing but a customer request. My point is obviously e- everything we are doing because of customer request. Otherwise, I don't have no point to come to MDG framework and do all those things. So this is of course obvious thing that everything we are doing, starting from data model to process model, and down the line we will do UI and everything that is all about the customer request. Right. So that's what. However, it is a standard field. So if you want to keep this standard field, because some customers I have seen that they want to keep this field, so you can keep that. Otherwise, you can remove it. How to remove? Like in next chapter in UI when we will go, we will see that how to remove some existing field on UI. So similarly, if you have any entry there, let's say for an example, you have an entry for YMAT 01, okay, or let's create one entry, what we have made today. So Z6 create. So the reason is, let's say, customer request. Okay. So now this entry, so here the reason table is uh, addition, reason share type, reason USMD 211C. USMD 211C. Okay. So this is the data. So now define rejection reason. Now rejection reason is now obsolete nowadays. Why it is obsolete? Because the moment you reject the change request, uh, you need to enter one mandatory note why you are rejecting that. Until and unless you provide that note with the proper details, you are not allowed to reject it. So there is no point to separately again maintain a certain field like rejection reason, which is also kind of a alias, kind of a description like a customer request or legal request or duplicate data. Even the duplicate data, what is duplicate data? What are the duplicate data we have? So we have to little, specific to the information. Otherwise, there is no sense to keep that. So that's what nowadays every project describes. Okay. Then define print from the change request. Now let me tell you, uh, since 6.1 MDG 6.1, we use the Fury. Sorry, we use the floor plan manager. And in the floor plan manager, we have, if I give you this this screenshot, if you see, you can see the right hand corner top. There is a printer option. Okay, but honestly speaking, I never see that any of the customer or end user is really using to print the change request. But anyway, as it is there in the process, so like in floor plan manager, we already have this option to print the change request if someone is really looking for to print it. So you can directly do from here. So that's what this option, this defined print form for change request. This is something which was using prior MDG 6.1 version. When it was MDG 5.0, it was Smart Forms and Adobe Forms. There was no floor plan manager concept. So that time it was using this print form activity from here. But nowadays it's not required. Okay. So, and also change request archiving. Change request archiving is something which you can get it from 9.0 version here. Okay, but change request archiving is an old concept. Normally, what happens that when let's say I have a certain change request, let's go to one change request. Let's go to the change request table. Okay, and then I don't know change request number. Let's take. Yes, indeed. 120 table. Okay. Mm, let's take one old change request rather than taking a new one. Let's take this one or this one, whatever. Little old one. Uh, 7. 7 is last one probably. Okay. Let's take this one. 410. 410. Change request number. Okay. So this change request I want to this change request is done and I don't need this change request anymore. So what I can do? So the best process which I believe, and this is an old process, most of the people in the project they use this. First of all, just remember, we are not going to delete any change request from the system. Okay, having the option does not mean that we have to do it. This is just an option. If you need, you can use it, but you does not mean that we have to use it. Okay, just please be clear with this concept. You are not supposed to delete any record from the system. Okay. Now go to AC38. You can go USMD underscore delete underscore C request. Execute. So the request which we have taken this is related to which data model, that I need to figure it out. It is ZZ map, so I can say it's a MM. And this is the number. So delete the changes and the request, or delete the changes only. That means respect to this change request. First of all, you have to understand at when we will really go for the change request delete. What happens sometimes that request is submit, it goes to next level, or let's say next level approved, then we go to next level. But during that procedure, sometimes what happened that because of some that the backend the backend internet access, or sometimes uh, uh, the path is the route the could not able to identify for the next level. So because of some, these are all reasons. What happens? However, it's a very rare case, but it happens that the change request could not reach to the next level, next approval level. I mean to say that. So in that case, there are certain procedure. Obviously, you can revert it back. You can roll back from the backend, and then it will again come back to the requester. So from requester again, you can trigger it. So that is one way. Okay, and always we prefer to do that way. But let's say your customer will say, okay, let's do one thing. We don't need this change request anymore. Okay, we will create a fresh one, so you can discard it. In that case, you can go ahead and discard it. So while you are doing this, remember, when you submit the data in the change request, your record will be in the staging table as well, right? In the physical table, I mean to say that. So the first option, it says whether we will remove the data from the staging table, the changes, as well as your change request. Second option says, or we will only go for removing your data from the staging table. Not, we will not touch your change request. Your change request will be as it is. But no, we will always go with the first option, because if my change request number is there in the system and the relative record is not there, then why I need that change request? That doesn't make any sense. So that's what, if I really go for a deletion, I need to delete the data which is in the staging table, also the change request number. Okay, so go there. So you really want to delete this? Yes. Okay. So now this 410 action completed. Now go to the table, USMD 120C table. So 410. Now refresh. Go back. 410. See, no value found. Okay, so it has been deleted. So that is the way we do the archiving of the change request. Now from MDG 9.0, they have given this additional option. Means it is not additional option. This is just one of the other way to do the things, but ultimately it's the same thing. They archive the change request. Here you can, honestly speaking, I tried only once earlier because it never required for me. USMD underscore CR. Then write here create variant z test. Okay. Continue. Change request number. Let's say 410. Let's take 411. Save the value. Yes. Okay. Go back and execute. Okay. So this is how I guess you can archive it. Okay. This is little complicated procedure. The easy procedure is go to SE38 USMD, delete C request, and this way you can do. Okay. But the archiving object is USMD underscore CR. Delete. I need to, I think, delete, click on the delete option and then archive selection. No. Anyway, you can explore it. So this is really, I believe that they just need to put something. So they just given here in a just for namesake because they are going with the next version, which is 9.0. But it really does not make any sense because we already have another old procedure and that is also working uh, much better way than this. So, and by the way, when you archive this change request, this procedure, it is also removed from your staging table and as well as the change request data. Okay, so both it will remove. Then business adding. So this business adding and workflow will take it in a different chapter. Okay, so this is and
Hi,
the
one doubt. Yeah.
yeah yeah please tell me.
That CR delete actually. I think the final approved CR we cannot delete, I guess, right? Which is already approved.
Uh, the final CR which we already approved, we cannot delete that. That is true. That's what the example which I have given. That is not the final case. Like if before final, if you have somewhere your CR lost, and then if you want to delete this, then you can do that. But any CR which is complete, like not only successful completion, in fact, if it is a final check rejection as well, that also you cannot
Yes.
delete through this archiving procedure. Okay,
Okay.
fine. Any question? Any other question?
No, no.
Okay, fine. So now coming to the point here. Uh, okay, one more thing here. This is also form-based change request. Form-based change request anyhow we are not using. This is also obsolete because we are using the floor plan manager. When it was smart forms and Adobe forms, that time it was using, but nowadays it's not required at all. we will directly go to uh, uh, the the floor plan manager feeder class, and we can directly change from there. Okay. So if we need to change any logic there, so that is something which is a part of UI, which will come next session. Now coming to the field properties. Now here, so the change request type match 01, match 01, change request type. Okay. So here I have just taken the change request, which is a standard one. Okay. Now what happens? This change request step, what you see, this is something once you define the workflow for the change request type. Now also let's see the one which we have created today. Okay. So some 000102. This is by saying it, you can say, okay, this is something which is coming as a standard. Okay. Now let me focus on the one which I was using the map. Now why I'm using this? The reason is in real-time project, when you define the workflow, and then when you come to this configuration area, you can see your workflow steps with respect to the change request type. Because down the line, when we will go to the workflow chapter, you can see that whatever the workflow steps we will maintain with respect to the change request type. So that's what, from that point, change request type is very important entity. So then we can select this and we can go to the enhancement check. And in the enhancement check, okay, now we can have a different type of check like authorization check, duplicate check, validations, the use area check, etc. So this is something which is a means if let's say I'm doing the authorization check or I'm doing the duplicate check or rather I do the validation check. If something gets wrong, then whatever the standard messages we have, that message will throw out. Apart from that, we can also say that issue error message as a warning. Okay, even though that the validation check failed, I will consider it as a warning, not as an error. So I want to release that. Okay. So if that is certain case you have in a certain project, okay, or certain scenario you have, then you can also use that. But normally we use the standard procedure. If anything gets failed through the validations or through duplicate check, then it will take accordingly the error or warning as per it defines. Okay. Or if we define any additional logic from our end in the respective feeder class or in the respective above body, then that will trigger accordingly. So that is one thing. Then entity type. Here, okay, this is important. Another item, which is, let's say I have a list of entity types and respect to the UI field property, by default, it is all going to check or it is all part of your standard process. Even though the custom one you are creating, it will come as a standard uh, process. But let's say for this particular step, If you don't want to call that entity type, then you can directly say it is not relevant instead of standard. Okay, or it you want that to be reflect but not required any field check, then you can also go for the not required field check. But if you want to hide that particular entity from that level, then you can go with the not relevant. Similarly, mm, go for material. So here go to the attribute level. In attribute level also, we have a similar sort of things. Standard, no relevant or no required field check. Normally we use no relevant if that is not needed for me for that level. So I will straight away go with the no relevant. Okay. And this one is basically, however, we don't use this, but you can use based on your requirement. Now let's say these are all different workflow steps, and every steps you may have a different screen altogether. Now there are two ways to define this. If such kind of requirement you have, one way is different screen means what? Different screen means it is not going to bring a completely a different setup altogether. No, just few fields won't be available for that particular level, and few fields will be available. Okay, so like that. So if that is the case, one way or the 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 more reliable way I can believe that is or easy way to do handle the thing is directly manipulate this through the UI feeder class, through the feeder class extensions. Okay, through above code, above object oriented, above logic, we can extend that. That is based on the different step level. What are those fields we want to hide and what are those fields we don't want to hide. Even the layout also some extent we can manipulate. Okay, that is one way. Another way is you can probably maintain different UI configuration respect to the configuration ID, and that application details and the configuration detail you maintain. So the first UI application will have certain set of field. Second will have whatever the requirement wise that set of field. Similarly, every step will have different sets. Okay, but this is just another option. You can obviously go for it, but I would personally recommend you to go for feeder class extension because feeder class extension is just not to hide your field or make it read only or make it mandatory. It is having a large scope of dealing with the fields. Okay, so this is the change request properties. Okay, and go back to the so here, yeah, activate type linkage we have to wait. I will come back to this topic until and unless we understand the UI part. There is no point to talk about this activate type linkage. And then, right. So I think this is all about the process model. Comparatively, other chapter, process model chapter is a small topic and uh, comparatively very straightforward topics like business activity, change request type, change request, etc. Okay. Only this part you remember. This part is related to these four items are related to the activate type linkage, which we will park for now. Okay. Now let me unshare my screen and quickly open the agenda so we can see what are those things we have completed today. Okay, so in process model, we develop custom process model. Yeah, just we develop through the airline processing. That is one. Then enhance the standard process like we have seen that how we can extend that. Just copy the standard and you can make it your own way, or you can create it. Okay. So similar, same way for material, for BP, for finance, and the activate type linkage. This is the main three topic. But apart from that, we also have something called how to deal with the change request status, the priority, the reasons, and also the this configure properties. Okay. So this is all about the uh, process model. So the next chapter which we are going to discuss tomorrow, that is the UI modeling. Okay. So any questions so far?
Hey, Aditya, how do you create SLS for change request?
Basically, I can give you little brief understanding how we make it. Basically, what happens that first of all, how the requirement is. Uh, the requirement says that mm, my customer will see the data for the change request, let's say for monthly record or quarterly record or half yearly record or annually record, whatever the mode
Mhm.
it is, and and based on the contract, they will see how many change requests are meet and how many change requests are validated. And this data has to be reflect through the BO report. Okay,
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
this is the whole requirement. Now, how we do that? Basically, we write one standalone ABAP program. What that
Okay.
ABAP program contains? In that ABAP program, we will have a different layers of logic. If I start with first layer, I'm just giving you a brief, may not be exact, okay, but definitely it will be close to that. First layer will have, first we will read the the number of change requests giving the span of time. So we will have the output parameters, sorry, input parameters, that is the date range. Okay.
Mhm.
So based on the date range, or based on the data model, or based on certain change request type, but I would like to go for a date primarily, but also we can have a based on data model, based on CR type, etc. Okay,
Okay.
so then first layer of logic is we will first read the date, whatever the input date has been given, and based on that we will identify how many change request has been processed. Process means including creation, change, mark for deletion, block and block, mask, everything. Whatever it
Mhm.
has been processed. That's what I'm using the word process. So
Okay.
then keep it we keep it under the one internal table, and then we will see the respective priority. What is the priority for that? And then we will have the SLA maintained. Either we can maintain the SLA in CR backend table, or we can maintain the SLA in another database, custom database table. Okay, based on the
Mhm.
priority. Then we will read the change request, and while reading the change request, we will see what is the priority of the change request and
Mhm.
match that with the respective contract priorities. Then next is we need to see that the creation date and the release date of the
Okay.
change request,
Mm-hmm.
which comes in a timestamped manner, which I was talking about in USMD 120C table. Okay,
Yeah.
creation date and release date. So then, first of all, you will have a timestamp. So timestamp you cannot calculate. So you need to pass those information through the respective function module. There are a lot of function modules, standard function modules are available. Through
Mm-hmm.
passing that standard function module, we will get the exact date and time. Okay, in a
Okay.
proper manner.
Mm-hmm.
Then we need to do the calculation. Like
Mm-hmm.
we need to minus the release date and the creation date, and then we can see how many days we have, and then we need to see in between. We need to then evaluate the calendar that
Mm-hmm.
for that particular year, for that
Mm-hmm.
particular month, within
Mm-hmm.
that date range, whether in Saturday, Sunday came in between. Okay,
Okay.
and that
Mm-hmm.
we need to discuss that Saturday, Sunday. Okay, or
Okay. Mm-hmm.
or if it is a regional calendar, they also need to follow. Then accordingly, we need to maintain that in a different table or somewhere, and that
Mm-hmm.
also we need to follow. But to simplify it, let's go with the Saturday, Sunday. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so then the actual number of days we will have. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and that we need to match with the priority date, and then it will be
Okay.
very clear that whether it is valid or wait. So that is
Okay.
layer one.
Okay.
Layer one, at least you come to know that whether your change request is valid or it meet the timeline.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay.
Now the second thing is your leadership is also bother about for whom, because of whom this has been violated.
Mm-hmm.
There will be multiple approvals involved. I cannot put a
Mm-hmm.
gun to everybody. I have to see that which approver made delay, or
Mm-hmm.
for what reason it delayed. So
Mm-hmm.
then what we need to do, we have three different function module, which is
Mm-hmm.
basically read the change request backend data. What kind of
Okay.
backend data? Basically,
Mm-hmm.
how many approvals are involved in this
Mm-hmm.
request, or rather, how many times it has been involved the approval, because
Mm-hmm.
this request can be rejected. It will go back to the requester, and requester again can be resubmit that. So then
Mm-hmm.
again it will be go to the approval. So is first we need to identify in the second layer how many times the request has been gone for the approval, and
Okay.
we need to register those each and every time it gone for the approval, its start and end time, and
Mm-hmm.
then we need to evaluate that where exactly who has made the delay. So exactly you can
Mm-hmm.
identify that for
Mm-hmm.
what level it has been delayed more. Okay,
Okay.
means there can be two possibilities. One is nobody delay, just the data had an issue, so it has been round, means go back to the requester and then go to the approver. So that took a time. So that is one
Mm-hmm.
thing. Another one is that a particular approver who is on leave or who was busy with something else, so he or she could not able to look into that change request on time, and because of that it has been violated. So the
Okay.
picture will be pretty clear. And finally,
Mm-hmm.
you have to do this one more thing which I missed out. That is, we need to calculate the time zone. That is
Mm-hmm.
important because uh, system by default will take UTC time zone. So we
Mm-hmm.
have to calculate whether it is CET or it is IST or it is ET, whatever the time zone we need. according to that time zone, we have to put it the date and time, and then the calculation has to be done in the layer one. So that is one
Mhm.
more underlying point. This is majorly two, three different type of layers of coding which is required in order to identify. And finally, what we do, finally, whatever the, like there will be different columns of data, information like change request number, priority, whether violated, yes, no, and then approver one. So let's say I have a three levels of approval. Approver one, what time it has been come. Approver two, what time it has been come. What approver three, or specific details. So we can create a different, columns for final record, and we will put it into one custom table. Okay,
Mhm.
and then
Okay.
PWT,
Mhm.
PWT, they will they will run the delta load or full load. Okay,
Okay.
monthly basis or whatever you can say, and they will
Mhm.
collect this information from that
Mhm.
table, and they will put it into their system, and they will create from that data the
Mhm.
the required pie chart or graphs accordingly.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
So this is the whole way to deal the things. Okay.
Okay. Mhm.
Briefly, I just explained, but we have a categorically for this SLA because this is
Mhm.
something which is very common for all the
Mhm.
projects. So we have
Mhm.
a case study for that.
Okay. So, I mean, these backend tables, right? How do we populate those? I mean, do we populate those tables manually, or I mean, like SLA table or any other tables? What you showed in the previous screens, right?
Backend table, let's say, yes, I understand your point. So backend table, how to basically in the logic, let's say in a standalone above program, if I maintain this SLA and if I need probably the priority and the SLA table, then I just need
Mhm.
to include in my logic and it will just make a select query respect to this table and we need to check what is the entry I have, or let's say I will just match the change request priority whether this priority is a part of this table or not. Okay,
Mhm.
so definitely I need to call in my program these tables.
Yeah, no, no. How do you populate these tables? I mean, do you populate these tables with the user interface, or you go and manually enter them, make an entry into these tables?
No. These tables are going to what we have seen. Like if I let's say for an example status, if I make an entry here, automatically the
Mhm.
respective status table will have that entry. So that
Yeah, yeah.
entry will come automatically. I will just validate the data through my code.
Okay. Okay. No, but SLAs,
Yeah,
in
I'm not
this
going
whatever,
to. Hmm.
right, when you are making edit or change request, at that time I did not see any SLA information to enter, right, in that screen.
Not required. That's what ultimately my data will come out from the priority. If I
Okay. Okay.
have the change request priority, then it's more
Mm,
than sufficient for me. Because anyhow, based on my contract, I know what is
mm.
my priority is. If one, then this many hours. If two, then this many hours. So then accordingly, my calculation will go. So I don't need any other information. Only
Okay.
the
Okay.
information I need is the priority of the change request and the start and the end time of the change request.
Okay. Okay. Got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. So let me close here today. Okay. So tomorrow, same time, we will start and we will start with UI modeling. Okay. And the relative documents and everything already in place. Uh, so you can go and you can see the data.
Adit, Ashit this side. I have one question. Any dashboard available in
Yeah, tell
Fury?
me.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Tell me.
Yeah. So related to change requests, suppose that a business asks every day after business hour, we need to check how many CRs created, how many approval pending or SL. So any automated SAP provided dashboard available in the Fury and WBC, or we need to create a custom program with help of developer?
Hmm, NWBC, I can assure you no. I don't think so. There is anything really available. We need to create additional logic for this, and of course, we can add that particular program with NWBC UI link. So that link you can click, and there will be some front end input like. The time you can probably need to give, and they can see that the list. But there is no standard program. I don't think so. It is there for NWBC. Fury, I'm not 100% sure because I'm not expert on that. However, I'm using Fury nowadays little bit, but I don't think so. There is something what you are looking for is available in Fury, but still, I will cross check uh, on Fury side. Okay, but I don't think so. It is available, but this is something what you are asking. It is another very common requirement. You can just create one standalone program, and similarly, like you will have a kind of a input where just need to give the time and date, and that needs to be linked with the NWBC. So that program will be your backend program basically, and front end you will have a NWBC hyperlinks with the necessary input, and then the moment you trigger, the necessary input will appear on the screen.